The following podcast is brought to you by the Johners Podcasting Network, found exclusively at wrestlingwithjohners.com.
All right, thank you, Buckle Bound Faithful, for joining us. Joining me today, we have a former openweight champion from Oregon Pro Wrestling. We have the Black King, Deonte Ford. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing really well. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. It's a little warm here in my studio, but starting to cool off finally. Sun's going down.
Yeah, same. Weather's been it just started to pick up. It's getting a little warmer out here, but it's cooling down now tonight. It's starting to wind down out here on the West Coast.
Great. Yeah, it's a nice time of night. You know, starting to cool down. Things are calming. So it's always a great time of night. So tell me, you're currently wrestling with BCW Blue Collar Wrestling. Is that correct?
Yes. So little backstory. I actually started training in 2016 at BCW, located in the Portland Eagles Lodge in North Portland off of Portsmouth and Lombard. And then I was there for about 2 years. No, maybe I want to say about like a year and a half. Left for a few years, and now I'm back at BCW.
Great. Who did you train under? Can you tell us what it was like training, you know, maybe what you expected on your first day walking the training, and then how you felt after your first day of training?
So I originally started training with Aries Toretto. And my first day of training, it was about 6 years ago, actually. I walked in and it was like a surreal moment type of situation, like, because you walk into the building. Like, I had actually been showing up to BCW for like a couple weeks, and I had let a few people know that I was interested in, you know, being a professional wrestler, because it's been my dream since I was about like 2 years old. So, yeah, I walked in the building, and it was a little surreal feeling, because, you know, you see the ring without all the chairs set up for the crowd and everything, and then you just see the ring, and I was the first one there, so I was kind of by myself, and I just kind of like went next to it, and, you know, grabbed the ropes, kind of like, you know, took a selfie, because it was more so like, hey, I'm actually doing this, not more so like, hey, look, I'm trying to be a professional wrestler. It's more so like, hey, this is something. This is actually a reality. And when I went in, I didn't know what to expect. I just, you know, went in with an open mind, saying, hey, this is something you've always wanted to do. Give it a shot. If you can't do it, you'll know if you can't do it. But I'm the type of person that doesn't like to have can't in my vocabulary. And I always try to push myself to accomplish and achieve my dreams. But that first day of training, everything just felt right. It felt like, you know, this is what I've always wanted to do. This felt like the right thing to do. This is the right thing for me to do, and I want to keep doing this. And after that first day, it was just a continuous grind, you know.
I'm sure you're pretty sore, you know, the first day after physical activity.
Yeah, the bumps, learning how to take the bumps and do the necessary things to, you know, actually do this. My body was a little stiff. It was a little stiff the first time. Wasn't too sore, but, you know, as time has gone on and you go through the motions of wrestling, you know, injuries or minor injuries do happen. You know, you might hurt yourself, bruise something. So yeah, there have definitely been some weeks and some weekends where I've definitely I've walked away a little more bruised up than I came in, for sure. So like, I mean, like, even like you can see now, my right shoulder.
Oh yeah.
Last week's tag match, you know, I got dropped, boom, hit the shoulder, but, you know, it's not in a bad condition. It's just bruised, a little tender, but it comes with the business, you know, it comes along with the territory.
A little wear and tear, never hurt anybody.
Yeah, for sure.
So what surprised you the most, you know, as far as like, you know, I'm sure going in the training, you had your expectations. What surprised you the most that ended up being completely different as far as the business?
What surprised me the most? Say hi, baby. You see your podcast? You say hi.
Hi.
Say hi. So, what surprised me the most? Honestly, is just some of the wild stuff you hear, like from some of the guys, like you hear about the politics of the business, and the politics can sometimes be, they can be a lot for sure, but just surprising to see how some of the games are played. But other than that, nothing in wrestling is supposed to surprise you because it's professional wrestling. It's one of the it's out there, like a lot of people, you have to, it's a certain, how am I trying to say it? There's a certain level, you know what I'm saying, like, to understand it, because you have the fans who have a love-hate relationship with the pro wrestling business because they always want what they want. They want to see what they want to see, when it comes to like the, more mainstream stuff. And, even like when it comes to more like independent stuff, fans accept it. But like the mainstream, they want to see what they want to see. They feel how they feel, everything of that nature. So like that in and of itself can be surprising sometimes too, because when you see like that local fan who also watches like the WWEs and the AEWs, and then you just see how they interact on the internet, that's probably, I would say too, is one of the most surprising things, because it can be a toxic environment for sure. Um, but like I say, politics and everything else is probably what surprises me the most. But at the same time, I'm a person that tries to steer away from politics. I try to leave the wrestling business better than how you find it. Like, it was one of those things, like anywhere you go, you want to leave something better than how it is when you got there. Like, it might not, it's not saying that it's a bad place. Like, it could be a great place, but you just still want to improve on the quality, and you want to add to that, that atmosphere, and you want to build upon that and leave it better, or at least you leave better and learn something and take something from it. And then you take that and apply that as you continue to move on in life.
Exactly. Now, you mentioned that you started watching wrestling or fell in love with it pretty early, at the age of 2. Back then, who were some of your favorite wrestlers? When you were a kid, who did you love watching growing up? Maybe kind of formed who your personality is?
Oh, definitely. I always tell people my 2 favorites, like I had a bunch of favorites at the time, but my 3 favorites, the Ultimate Warrior, Bret Hart, and Sting. Sting was always like Ultimate Warrior, his energy, I love the face paint, like same with like the Legion of Doom. I love the face paint, stuff like that. It always stood out to me, the bright colors, you know what I'm saying? And then, just the energy that they brought. And then Bret Hart, for his like just because he said what he was. He was the best there is, best there was, best there ever will be, and I just always loved that. And then the shades, and he was the only guy to like really, him and his family, the only dudes to like really wear like hot pink, and it was a thing. It was like, wow, that's dope. Pink and black attack, the shades, the jackets, just the swagger he took out when he went to the ring. It was something that I really fell in love with. Also love Shawn Michaels. I always just love the whole Heartbreak Kid thing. Like his WrestleMania 12 match, him and Bret, that's probably my favorite match ever. I always tell people that's my favorite match. It was an Iron Man match. But like that entrance, like I was just sold on the whole product for sure. But like those 3 guys, Warrior, Sting, and Bret Hart, those were the reasons why I really like gravitated to professional wrestling.
To me, at least what I remember, Shawn Michaels was the first one really that brought showmanship into everything.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one that really started bringing entertainment to the side of it and kind of paved the way, I guess, more for the entertainers. But he also had the ability as well.
Yeah, definitely. Shawn is probably, like to say, you called him Mr. WrestleMania for a reason, because he always stepped it up. He always showed that passion, that the selling, the character, everything. He was a total package, bro. Like I said, a lot of those guys that I named, they hit certain like check marks, but like Shawn covered like everything. He was a wrestler. He could be technical. He could be flashy. He could be a high flyer. Like I said, the entrance was always, big. The fireworks, the pyro, all that. That was always a big thing with Shawn. Like, so And like I say, bell to bell, he was probably one of the best storytellers in the wrestling ring, you know, especially for that era of wrestling, during that new generation / attitude era phase of professional wrestling. Like Shawn was one of the, you know, the leaders of that movement.
Totally agree. Can you describe your character in ring? Like, what's your persona? People didn't know anything about you. How do you describe yourself in the ring?
So the Black King, and what is basically me and what I've always stood for since I was a kid. You know, I always, you know, growing up, you hear about the stories of, you know, African Americans coming from, being descended from kings and queens in the African, you know, culture. So I always like gravitated to, you know, I was a king and I probably was descended from kings. But at the same time, I also looked at how the media portrayed kings, and kings were always portrayed as like these pompous assholes, or, you know, like like unless it was Disney, you know, the king wasn't a chivalrous person. You know what I'm saying? He was, you know, always usually was the prince or somebody. He was, you know, saving the day. But like in mainstream media, most kings, you know, even in the history books like Caesar, Alexander the Great, guys of that nature, the way that they ran things, did things, people perceived them as, you know, like not good guys. So my goal was always to set out to be different. You know, like when you see a king in professional wrestling, people always think of the bad kings. You know, you have to be this to be the king. I always wanted to be the go against the grain and go against the status quo. The Black King stands for good. Like I don't see, you know, like there's a good side, there's a bad side. I'm gonna do whatever I have to do to, you know, fight for what's right. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't cross the line. I don't have to do anything dirty, but I am going to fight. I'm going to always bring the fight to you. I'm always going to stand up for what's right. I fight for the people, because if you take care of the people are going to take care of you. So I try to give them that love and that respect. And in return, you know, they show me love and respect. And that's how I always try to carry myself. In the ring, I would say that the Black King he's unorthodox for sure. And that's kind of like, I can be that way sometimes. I'm very stoic at times, but I also have this other side where I'm like, my personality is like turned up to like 1,000, you know? So when I'm in the ring, it's like I'm at home, so I feel it, and I'm always trying to figure out ways to attack my opponent. So I come with high energy. I come with big moves. I come with something that's gonna put you on your ass and try to put you down for the 1, 2, 3, so I can secure the victory. You know, like I'm a bigger guy. I'm on the bigger side of 200 pounds. So, you know, I use that weight to my advantage. I throw my body around. You know what I'm saying? I'm not afraid to throw caution to the wind if I have to. You know, I'm not afraid to try to go for that big move, but I do try to ground you. Also, like I said, being that I'm a person who watched like Bret Hart and watched a lot of technical wrestlers, I try to break a person down. I try to break them down if I can, wrestle them. You know, if I have to, you know, work an arm, work a leg, if I got to, you know, work a body part to get to my end goal, that's what I'm going to do. But I just try to be a mix of a little bit of everybody that I have, you know, I've watched growing up and that I not so much idolized, but I admired growing up. And then I put my own flavor to it, you know. So I try to be Sting. I try to throw a little bit of Undertaker in there. I try to throw a little bit of Bret in there. I try to throw a little bit of The Rock, you know, whatever works for me. And, you know, to, like I said, to get to that end goal of getting the 1, 2, 3 for the victory, that's what I try to do.
You gotta do it however the crowd's feeling with you that night.
Yeah, and that's another thing, just feeding off the crowd. But like when I hit those big moves, the crowd, like I just started like implementing using the pounce. It's a lot of people don't use the pounce. It was originally used by Monty Brown in TNA, and it was one of his finishes. And Keith Lee is another person that also uses the pounce. But I've started implementing it into my repertoire and into my arsenal, and it's definitely been getting a great reaction from the fans. So I'm definitely planning on keeping that. You know, I do like I say, big moves, belly to belly suplexes, spine busters. Whatever I can do to, you know, get the fans, you know, going, get them behind me. They feed off that energy. So like I say, build on those big moments.
Exactly. One quote that I saw you had posted, I'm going to read it off to you. I want to get your thoughts and your feelings on what it means. It was from Scott Hall, his famous quote, "Hard work pays off, dreams come true. Bad times don't last, but bad guys do." When you hear that, what does that mean to you?
So I could take that in a couple of different ways for sure. And what Scott Hall was meaning, because I was definitely a Razor Ramon fan, definitely a NWO fan. You know, the bad times don't last, but bad guys do. Think of it like this. You know, uh, in the movies, in the classic movies, or even in comic books. Like I'm a big comic fan, so one of my favorite superhero is Batman. Who's Batman's most favorite villain? The Joker, right? The Joker stands out for what reason? Because he's a psycho. He's crazy. You know what I'm saying? Like he doesn't care what he does. He does what he does just to get a rise out of Batman sometimes, or just for the hell of it. So, and a lot of what the Joker's done, he's done a lot of crazy stuff over the years that, certain things stick out over time. But at the end of the day, he's done over 100 something crimes that are very vicious. But for the main reason you remember it, it's just the Joker. You might not remember everything he's done, but you remember who that person is. So with the Razor Ramon thing and how I felt like that came across was something that he said. He came through as at that time as a heel, one of the, a different character. He was like that Scarface, Tony Montana, oozing machismo, and you might not remember everything that he did that was dastardly, but he stuck out to you and he left a lasting impression. So in that regard, like just with like in wrestling, like a lot of times, you have these hot baby faces that stick out, but who was the bad guy that helped make them? You know what I'm saying? Like who really helped make, like in '85, Hulk Hogan and Hulkamania started running off with WrestleMania, but without Mr. T, not Mr. T, but without Roddy Piper, in that main event, without Paul Orndorff in that first main event,
Mm-hmm.
and then go a couple years later to WrestleMania 3. Hulkamania is still hot, but without Andre the Giant and that big body slam. You know what I'm saying? You always remember the babyface, but that heel that had to put him over. Andre was his friend. Andre turned his back on him. It was a whole bunch of crazy stuff. Then even look at WrestleMania 7. He went against Sergeant Slaughter. At the time, it was the war. I think it was the Cold War in Kuwait or whatever, during the early '90s.
Yep.
And then they flipped Sergeant Slaughter to make him a sympathizer. But again, perfect foil for Hulkamania. You like, we always remember Hulk Hogan for being Hulkamania, say your prayers, eat your vitamins, but there were certain people that had to help him get there. Same with Ric Flair. Ric Flair would be known as the greatest wrestler, and Ric Flair was the best heel ever. But you remember the guys that he wrestled, the Ricky Steamboats. Sting was made because of Ric Flair. Sting was a made man because of Ric Flair. Sting always says it himself. Um, Vader was another bad guy. You remember the bad guys for what they did and what they, their what they contributed to professional wrestling.
Exactly. So we talked about, when you started out, your influences. Let's get to a little bit more recent, more modern. You started in 2016. A couple years into it, we get the pandemic shutdown.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, you trained, you've been going at it for years, and now you got to stop. What was that like?
That was rough. It was rough for sure.
So then once the pandemic ends, or not really ends, but opens up enough to where we can, wrestlers can start training, get back in the ring and start doing shows. Was that feeling that you can get back to it better than when you first started to train?
Honestly, no, it wasn't for me. Not right away. It wasn't, because like during the so it was definitely a trying time, because at that point in time, I had been training for 3 years. I had just started and had my first like full year of wrestling, and like I said, wrestling for the Oregon Wrestling Club. I had just literally became the second open weight champion, and was working on figuring out who am I going to defend against, what kind of energy can I bring as the champion, because I had elevated myself. I worked hard and I earned my spot and I earned that championship. The pandemic hit, didn't get a chance to defend my title, didn't get a chance to do anything. And so the pandemic ended, slowly ended, and training opened back up. But I wasn't able to get the training right away because like I said, through the pandemic, like right before the pandemic actually started, right before the shutdown actually started, I had found out I was having my daughter. So had her during the pandemic. And then with things opening back up, it was still hard. I'm a dad to a newborn, a newborn baby who wasn't even one yet. And then just finding places to train became a thing. Then the Oregon Pro Wrestling School opened up, which they're definitely cranking out a lot of good students. They're cranking out a lot of great professional wrestlers, a lot of young independent talent up and coming. And I advise anybody that's looking to be a pro wrestler in the Pacific Northwest area, or even if you're looking to move to the Pacific Northwest and you might be interested in pro wrestling, to go check them out. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like I said, just trying to get back. I actually haven't even been able to really get to like any major trainings anywhere. I've just been like working every week when I get back in the ring. I'm just knocking off the rust by just doing it, by doing the job,
Right.
So knocking it off, getting back to it. But yeah, it's definitely been a rough period during the pandemic, because like I say, that so much momentum was lost, and a lot of I had already, like I say, spent the better part of a year really like getting it together, working it out, figuring out the crowd, figuring out the timing, and then when you come back after like a year or 2 years, there's a lot of ring rust. There's just a lot of stuff that you have to re-navigate and re-figure out. And it definitely it was hard the first couple of matches back for sure. But I'm getting back to it. I'm getting back into form, and and it's been gratifying for sure to get back started, especially like at BCW, because like I said, before I even wrestled, I was training at BCW, but I never got the chance to wrestle at BCW. So now I'm back, and it feels like, I'm writing a new chapter with this company, with this promotion, and I'm, taking care of unfinished business.
Great. That's what we hope to hear. What are your goals for the future? What are you hoping to accomplish?
Right now, I'm just trying to wrestle as much as possible, get eyes on me, get my name out there. I'm trying to be able to eventually, like, I want to wrestle back home. I'm originally from Chicago, which also has a lot of rich wrestling history.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm trying to get eventually to wrestle in the Midwest, wrestle in the East Coast, wrestle some more around the Pacific Northwest, wrestle in the South. My goals as far as like what I really want to do, I kind of want to get down to like maybe the Rhodes Wrestling Academy down in Texas to learn from Dustin. I want to pick up some knowledge there from him, maybe even Booker T's Reality of Wrestling. I definitely want to try to get with some of those guys and just some of those legends, and like just get under that learning tree and really hone my craft. But like I said, I want to be able to get around this country, be able to travel the world, maybe go wrestle in Britain, go wrestle in France or somewhere, go wrestle in Mexico, go wrestle in Canada. I want to be able to be well traveled as an international, superstar. I would love to be in a WWE and AEW one day, if I'm being honest. But I also know that I'm starting to get to the older side of 30. I'll be 34 this year. So, the youth side, the youth factor isn't on my side as much. But one thing, like I said, I never give up. I always push myself, and I'm adaptable, and I know that if I get the shot, I'm going to definitely push myself to give myself the chance to make something, and make the most of every opportunity that I get.
I mean, you can be completely negative. I mean, we do look back, Diamond Dallas Page, he didn't start till he was 34, 35, right around that time
Yes,
frame.
that would, and the fact that you say that is funny because that's also one of my favorite wrestlers, just because of that
Mhm.
situation. Like, him. Like, don't get me wrong, he had already started. He had a couple gimmicks. Was a manager. He was being, Vinny Vegas. He wasn't Vinny Vegas, but he was like, the Diamond Stud. You know, Dallas Page, and but yeah, he really got his big break at 35. So, it is very possible, and I do use that as a motivator as well. Um, I do use that as a motivator as well for the future. For my possibility to really, make something of myself in this business. And like I said, I do have, the confidence in myself, and I have the upside, and I have the knowledge, and I have, the determination to really do something with that. And I believe that I can do something with that and make something of myself with that.
Great. Um, when you look at today's products, some of the big names, WWE, AEW, Impact, or even Ring of Honor. What are your thoughts on today's product? What are your likes and dislikes on it?
Honestly, as a person who's been a fan and who who tries to watch as much professional wrestling as I can, I found myself going back watching a lot of the older things, and it's mostly because I'm trying, like I say, building on my own character, building on my own self. And a lot of times what's old can be new again when you're
Mhm.
like putting together matches and looking at things to make you stand out. As far as today's product, I I love it. I mean, I'm not gonna be like, one of those guys who say I love it, I hate it. No, I love what the guys are doing because, like I say, this is my generation. We grew up watching Shawn and Triple H and Undertaker and Sting and Lex Luger and, Hogan and Nash and Hall. This is the generation that grew up watching those guys, and they're taking the business and pushing it further and beyond. Now, do I have my quirks and my gripes about some things? Yes, I do. But it's also because, like, some of my trainers, like my second trainer who I hadn't touched on, but the guy that really instilled a lot of like old school values in me too was Cameron Starr. And Cameron Starr, here in Oregon Pro Wrestling, was trained by Ed Wiskowski, Colonel De Beers, Sandy Barr, which is a very famous name out here if you don't know the Barr family, and WWE Hall of Famer Buddy Rose. So a lot of old school history and a lot of lineage in my training and from my trainer. So and he always drilled in, the little things. So there are some quirks and, things that I see that I'm like, okay, that's a little, but at the same time, when I'm watching a match from a fan standpoint, I sit there and I try to enjoy the match for what it is. Like, I know a lot of times we say wrestling is too spotty, a guy's not selling enough, or in this match it was like, oh, it's this, and this. But sometimes you just gotta, just like when you were a kid, you have to sit, you have to enjoy the story, you have to enjoy the match and what these guys are doing to tell the story. You know what I'm saying? Because they're the ones telling it. We can't control how they tell the story. Yes, I might not want to see 20 super kicks in the match. But if that's what's in that guy's arsenal to
Right.
get from point A to point B, let it be and enjoy that. So, but I don't keep up on all the weekly stuff. I more so have to read the dirt sheets. Um, and then I do keep up with the pay-per-views where I can. I loved Forbidden Door. I thought Forbidden Door was a great pay-per-view. Money in the Bank was a little, lackluster for sure. Baby girl. Daddy's doing an interview. You want to say hi to the people one more time? Say hi.
Hey.
So yeah, Money in the Bank was good, but I'm not gonna lie. Just sometimes seeing some of the pay-per-views, and you like say a lot of times WWE does have pay-per-views that kind of feel like they could just be a Monday Night Raw or a SmackDown episode, which
Right.
they've been guilty of over the years. But like I say, I've been a fan of WWE since I've been watching, just like I was a fan of WCW. I'm not going to stop watching. I'm going to keep enjoying the product. I love seeing the fact that stars are always, that when they find their stars, they're building on those that they do have. Like I say, you can't fault, writers and stuff for everything, how people see characters. You just got to sometimes let it play out. and enjoy it for what it is. That's what pro wrestling is, man. It's made to be enjoyed. It's different levels of it. You got people that love death matches, and you got people that love backyard wrestling. You know, you got people that might love a comedy match over a person that loves, like me. Like I say, I can watch a technical masterpiece. I can watch Daniel Bryan versus CM Punk and have them have an hour Iron Man match, and I can be, I could be completely in love with it. Or I can watch Kenny Omega versus Kota Ibushi. Something that might be a little bit more ramped up and a little bit more spotty, but you know what I'm saying? It's just professional wrestling. Take it for what it is, enjoy it for what it is, and just be a fan. You know.
I think we're blessed, this day and age. There's so many styles of wrestling, and there's just so much easy access to get what you want to watch, whether it's new or old. So many different promotions there you have easy access to. We're living, I think, in another golden age of wrestling, in my opinion.
This is for this millennium. This is a new golden age of wrestling. I said it actually. Like I say, this is the new boom period for wrestling. It's like being back in the territory days, because you have all these independents popping up, and then you got big, and like out here you have Defy Wrestling. You also have Prestige Wrestling that's becoming a big name, and pro wrestling out here on the West Coast. And then you got places like GCW, out on the East Coast doing big things. Like, a couple months ago, I worked a show called, I was at a show called Roseland 2 for Prestige Wrestling, and they had Effie and Alley Catch, the Bussy people, Dark Sheik, and then you had somebody like Athena, who's newly independent, back on the independence, and the crowd was hot for it. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's definitely a big boom in wrestling right now for sure. And like I say, for guys that are really trying to live the dream and guys on the independence, this is a big chance for a lot of us to make names for ourselves and do something on a whole other level and really step our game up, and really, to get to that next platform, to get to that cusp that we want to be in.
Totally, 100%. All right, so before we wrap things up here, there's a little game I like to play with my interviewees. I call it the electric chair. It's kind of 6 rapid-fire questions. Some will be wrestling, some will be non-wrestling. So just, answer with the first thing that pops in your mind. So question 1, what would be a dream venue to wrestle in?
The United Center.
Ooh, great. What is the most underused weapon in professional wrestling?
Say that one more time.
What's the most underused weapon in professional wrestling?
Oh, the most underused weapon? Jeez. Underused weapon. Sheep hand. A sheep hand.
Oh, okay. Yeah. What superhero? If all the superheroes entered a fight, who would win?
Batman.
What is the best snack to have at a concert?
Best snack to have at a concert? Nachos or some M&M's peanuts.
Nachos, the official snack food at Buckle Bomb. So great answer. Now as we're recording this today, Ric Flair announced his last match. But in your opinion, who was Ric Flair's best opponent?
So a little bias here because I grew up on it. I would say Sting, but as a wrestling enthusiast, probably I would say Ricky the Dragon Steamboat.
Okay. I think both are acceptable answers there. And the final question, what is the one movie you can watch over and over again and never get tired of?
The one movie I could probably watch over and over again and never get tired of. It's a toss-up between... Wow, bro. Okay, so it's going to be 3. I'm sorry. So fans, forgive me. I know I'm complicated. The king is complicated, but I'm the king. So it is what it is. Tim Burton's Batman / Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight / Avengers Infinity War Endgame.
All good choices. I can't disagree.
Yeah, it's like those like, I mean, I have a lot of other movies that especially a little bit in the Marvel universe, since Marvel started their phases, and because DC's only really had Batman to stand on. But there's been a couple Marvel movies in the last year. I don't know if you ever see Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. That movie, when I first saw it, I saw it a couple months ago, and and I watched it in the visuals in that movie, and then just the martial arts choreography and everything. Like, that movie is top notch. It's probably one of those movies where I'm like, yes, I can watch this probably like once a week and never get tired of it. Like,
Right.
I felt like the acting and everything was like great.
All right. Bonus question: who is your favorite Batman?
My favorite Batman, and I just answered this the other day, Kevin Conroy. And if people don't know who Kevin Conroy is, he is the voice of Batman from the animated series and the voice of Batman in the Arkham Knight video games, in the Arkham video games.
Yep. Okay, Deonte. That'll wrap it up for us here today. If people want to find out more about you, where can they find you?
Okay, so you can find me on Twitter. Hey, cool it. Daddy's finishing up, okay? All right. So the first place you can find me at is on Twitter, underscore, is at _first, 1ST, King Hitman. That's on Twitter. You can find me on YouTube at King Hitman. I'm on Instagram, I believe, as King _Hitman_. I'm also somewhere on Snapchat. Look up Deonte Ford, you'll find me. And also you can look me up on Facebook as well. I do have a Black King page that I'm working on to get going here probably in the next month or so. So it will be up and running. But until then, on Facebook, you can just look me up under Deonte King Ford.
Fantastic. And we will throw all the links in our video description as well. Thank you for making time for us today.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. And thanks everybody for watching. Have a great night.
You too.
Thanks.